Hello and welcome. I'm Tommaso Eridani, and this is Story Scanner, a podcast based on the stories headlining Via Sarfatti 25, the magazine from Bocconi University, with analysis and insights from Bocconi professors and researchers on the big topics in business, management, data science and politics. In this episode, we take a look at career and life paths. Specifically, turning points and the role that lifelong learning can play with picking up new skills that then act as a motor for change. In the life of each of us, in fact, there often comes a moment that, looked at in retrospect, appears to be a moment of change, a real turning point. It is a moment in which one has the courage to question one's own certainties and feels a strong urge to change direction. When this happens, in the professional sphere, the path often requires the acquisition of new and different skills. It doesn't matter whether it is reskilling or upskilling. At the center of each of them is a path of continuous training. At a personal or company level, the new managerial and professional skills acquired enable a radical change of perspective in one's life or in one's company. Back in 2017, the Economist indicated lifelong learning as the new economic imperative, an obligatory path for the generations that would have to face the changes onset by factors such as automation and digital transformation, which amplify the need for an accelerated reconversion of human capital. And the COVID pandemic has only further accelerated this trend. It is no coincidence, for example, that promoting training is featured as a key objective in Italy's National Recovery and Resilience Plan. Giuseppe Soda is Dean of SDA Bocconi School of Management, which has always committed itself to promoting lifelong learning through a wide variety of masters and executive programs, now also online, so as to give individuals and organizations the possibility to train and update in order to better face the challenges of the contemporary world and stimulate change. He gives us his thoughts on the role and relevance of continuous training in today's world.
In the Italian National Recovery and Resilience Plan, the word formazione, training and education, is mentioned 206 times, twice more than the term GDP, thrice more than growth, 5 times more than public administration, and much more frequently than firms or other important words. Furthermore, in the crucial passage of the plan relating to the employment policy for the coming years, 3 strategic objectives are indicated. Increase the employment rate by facilitating job transitions and providing people with adequate training. 2, reduce the skills mismatch. 3, increase the quantity and quality of training programs for young people and the unemployed people in a context of investments also in the continuous education of the employed people. None of this is by random chance, because attention to human capital and its growth requires extraordinary investments in training, upgrading and adaptation of people, upskilling, as well as the development of new ones, reskilling. As also Next Generation EU and the Italian recovery plan clearly indicate, the recovery from the collapse of the economy engendered by the pandemic responds to the trend, which emerged well before COVID, towards the development of skills as crucial factors for social transformation. The intertwining of pressures for post-pandemic economic growth and the technological revolution amplifies the needs for an accelerated reconversion of the human capital employed, both in companies and public administration. It is a process that will extend over time, since the speed and the depth of the variations in competences and skills imposed by sectoral transformations require continuous adaptation from which no one in the workforce is exempted, both at operative and decision-making levels. In industrialized nations, for many years, the idea was prevalent according to which schooling and higher education represented a sort of initial propelling thrust capable of feeding a person's personal life cycle indefinitely. This approach could only be effective in a world of static and relatively stable skills over time, where skills and knowledge are treated as a stock of capital. However, today's world is characterized by the profound and continuous transformation of skills. According to the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs Report 2020, approximately 85 million jobs could disappear by 2025, while 97 million new professional profiles are going to emerge, which are better suited in the new configuration of the division of labor between machines, algorithms, and human that is emerging. It is not only a radical transformation largely driven by technology that marks the new era, but also the generalized change in the model of skills and competences required by the vast majority of professions and sectors.
Professor Soda also has some clear ideas on what main characteristics and requirements continuous education should respond to.
To accompany people in this metamorphosis, training and investments in education must respond to two main characteristics: continuity over time and transformative value. First, the continuity of investment in education throughout one's working life is a necessary condition in order to be able to cope with instability in skills, understood as the proportion of new knowledge functional to performing a specific job, which characterize many industries. For example, average skills instability across economic sectors such as agriculture, food and beverages, automotive, high-tech manufacturing, consumer goods, ICT, energy, and financial services is estimated to be around 44%, with peaks of 55% in the case of car industry. To this general shortening of the skills life cycles, another trend is to be added, which is what is called job hopping, namely the reduction of the average number of years spent in a given job or profession. This tendency toward impermanence has lost the traditional stigma that made job hopping as an undesirable feature for a prospective employer. Thus, because skill instability and job hopping, there is a great dynamism that is changing the person-job organization relation in the form of increasing liquidity in the skills required to perform a specific job. All this requires continuous exposure to upskilling and reskilling processes to ensure that the rapid obsolescence of skill doesn't result in a systematic mismatch between individuals and job, to the detriment not only of the employability of individuals, but also overall productivity. In this context, to employ an effective analogy, lifelong learning or continuous learning is a kind of insurance policy against the obsolescence of skills, providing over time to individuals and organizations with a continuous flow of content and updates capable of ensuring the consistency between skill possessed by individuals and skills needed on the job. However, precisely from the point of view of lifelong learning, compared to the European countries, these 27 European countries, the Italian situation presents numerous critical points and delays. For instance, according to the Eurostat data, in the pre-pandemic period, 2016-2019, Italy was ranked 20th for share of working population participating in education and training activities, well below France, Germany, and lower than EU average. The gap that Italy needs to fill is large, and the problem is amplified by the generalized distrust and poor culture of investment in training on the part of small and medium-sized enterprises, especially those working for the domestic market. Second is the transformative element. The transformative element of continuing education is condensed in the ability to profoundly modify the hard component of skills, but also in the way it influences individual cultural and behavioral development. In this light, education becomes a regenerative force, a kind of palingenesis which prompts radical renewal. Most investment in adult education arises from a need for professional regeneration, and this always entails a process, sometimes draining from a psychological point of view, of questioning one's own professional identity. What is observed, however, is that transformation-oriented training focuses on individuals that are capable of changing not only their own situation, but also the organizations they work for. These are people who are capable of challenging themselves to achieve a kind of professional regeneration that yields positive impacts across the entire organization, encouraging change and stimulating the ability to deal effectively with current transformations in business models and technology and consumer behaviors.
Back in 2010, Isabella Castiglioni decided she was ready for a turning point. A professor of physics at Milano Bicocca University, she decided she wanted to transform her research into something more concrete to benefit society, with products and services for doctors and patients. So she enrolled in the Executive MBA at SDA Bocconi, and come 2018, she was ready to found DeepTrace Technologies, which develops innovative imaging technology for the preventive diagnosis of Alzheimer and other diseases. She tells us what pushed her to look for a change in direction and why she looked at a business school to help her.
In those years, I started to work with my best postgraduate and research students in my laboratory at the National Research Council of Italy to find a practical solution that applied our skills in artificial intelligence to medical imaging for the early diagnosis and prognosis of Alzheimer's disease. We achieved important results in science, but I wanted to translate such results beyond academia and journals into practical social benefit. But I couldn't because I simply did not have the right competencies. I did not know how to transfer technology to the market, how to position the product if it was better, a product or a service, and how to sell such product or service in a sustainable and scalable way. Thanks to my executive MBA at SDA Bocconi, I learned how to develop a startup from university, how to implement a business plan and to put in place it to scale up in Europe, how to present the business to investors, and so I secured a seed investment fund of 1.7 million euros. MBA enabled the start, grow, prospects and goals of my company that were only rooted in my personal evolution and in my personal ability, I think, to question myself in order to follow a dream and transform my dream into a successful entrepreneurial story.
She feels certain skills, hard and soft, which she picked up in class, helped her achieve her objective.
Let me say that when the huge gap that separated my academic world from my medical diagnostics application became clear to me, I think I've understood that other skills were needed to do business with sciences. And so I decided to do it alone. And at 40, I chose the MBA, the Executive MBA, Masters in Business Administration at Bocconi University, to learn what I didn't know. As I told you, a scientist does not sell anything. He's not used to making quick decisions, considering the risk, imaging a market. With my MBA, I learned the required skills, surely. I mean, how to do business, but getting back to training has also brought out all my soft skills. Following MBA recommendation, I submitted anonymous questionnaires to my collaborators and students, for example, in the lab. And when they literally massacred me for my too negative leadership, I mean, I had a too strong attitude to control and intransigence of people and work activities. So I realized that I have to work on myself and I have to open myself more to listening and to accept missteps. I started learning a lot also from the coaching offered during the MBA, and I think the positive results were immediately visible, and I learned how to work in a more comfortable way.
We are now joined from Barcelona by Pau Rodríguez, for whom taking an MBA at SDA Bocconi in 2016 was a turning point because it gave him the crucial experiences to make the transition from what he calls a traditional path of an engineering degree followed by a job at a major bank to achieve his goal of becoming an entrepreneur. A couple of years after the MBA, Pau joined as CEO of the medtech startup Methinks AI, based in Barcelona, which develops medical imaging software based on AI that allows for diagnosing strokes quicker and getting patients treatment sooner. He tells us what pushed him to start from continuous training to set himself on a new path.
Well, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and at a certain point I decided to do the MBA basically for three key reasons. One is to have a 360 degrees understanding of business, also having exposure to several different industries. But particularly what was very important to me is to engage with people with many different backgrounds and different ways of developing their own career path, but also their personal growth. And having the exposure on all these aspects was crucial to make up my mind or how I would like to become an entrepreneur. The second thing that was very important is also engaging with investors, understanding how the startup ecosystem grew. And through one of these investors, I managed to join an early stage pediatric oncology startup in the healthcare space called Biogenera. And this experience was very important to put in practice the things that I learned and understanding the different challenges a startup is facing. After the experience there, I really wanted to be an entrepreneur myself. So I joined a venture capital as entrepreneur in residence, Nina Capital, and gave me the opportunity to meet the founder of the company I'm the CEO of now, and join as a partner too. And all this process was very important to actually do this transition from a corporate life to becoming an entrepreneur.
Let's hear how his experience at SDA Bocconi helped him define his turning point.
For me, there are two key concepts that are fundamental. One is having access to an ecosystem of people, experiences, a fertile ground in which you can develop yourself and try to find new opportunities. But the second thing that is crucial is that you need to have your own drive to be able to benefit of all this ecosystem and ultimately become an entrepreneur. Even if Bocconi can provide you with valuable resources and people that can help you on the pathway, it's not that they will get you from the hand and bring you to become an entrepreneur, but rather you are the one who needs to drive that. At the end of the day, if you want to become an entrepreneur, you need to think about what is the vision of what you want to achieve and be able to execute and engage with different people to ultimately achieve this vision. So without doubt, Bocconi is a fertile ground in which you can get access to these opportunities and ultimately become an entrepreneur.
I hope you enjoyed hearing about lifelong learning and how it can help us and the companies and organizations we work in to change, regenerate, and transform. You can read more about this topic and many others in the new issue of Via Sarfatti 25 magazine, with opinion, research, and insights from Bocconi professors and researchers. I'm Tommaso Eridani, and I hope you'll join me again for the next episode of Story Scanner.